and welcome to the Q3 SMP 321 webinar. I'm Lisa Matthews, Marketing and Communications Coordinator at Audio Video Interiors and Safety Technologies, and your SMP Chair. Today's topic, want more effective salespeople? Make an investment in them. Ken Nelson, Regional Vice President of Sales, Lenel and Interlogix, will share his methods of achieving maximum ROI on your sales force. Having been in the security industry since 1993, Ken has extensive experience in technical sales and sales management and is currently leading the largest region in the U.S. for UTC fire and security. For the past 4 years, he has served as an associate member representative on the board of directors for the ESA. Much of what you will learn today comes straight from his NTS Security Sales Essentials course, so excited that he'll be sharing this valuable information with us. CE credits are offered for this webinar, so we'll jump right in. Just a quick note that your lines are muted. Please use the chat log on your screen to submit questions, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation. Facilitating our call today is our ESA SMP liaison, Jacqueline. Thanks, Jacqueline, for coordinating and promoting today's presentation. First up, allow me to introduce Wesley Bryant, Account Manager, representing our sponsor of today's session, the Decal Factory. Wesley, go ahead.
Thank you, Lisa, and I also wanted to say thank you for Ken for taking your time, and Jacqueline as well. So I just want to kind of say thank you for the opportunity to talk to the ESA SMP. We, as a printing company for the security, we really decided to put our partnership behind the SMP because of the folks that you focus on the SMP for the security. So thank you very much for the opportunity. So just a couple things about us. We have been in the printing industry since 1993, quite a long time. We are a approved vendor on Monty on their Pro Shop. Right now we're running our production time in the industry for 9 working days for signs and decals, which is by far the fastest in the industry. We have the best customer service. You call, email, we're here to help you. We have a durable sign material that will last outdoors as far as everything that you guys need. So thank you very much for your time. Lisa, can you go to the next slide? So this is more or less the product highlights as far as what we have to offer. And obviously, if you can see the whole PowerPoint, I can't, I apologize. But those are most of the companies that we do in the security industry, a bunch of others as well that we could fit onto this sign. So again, my contact information is going to be on here. I wanted to thank you for your time and taking the time to listen to me, and we appreciate being part of the SMP and look forward to working with all of you from the SMP. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Wesley, and thank you for the Decal Factory for sponsoring today's session. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn control over to Ken. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. Hopefully everybody can hear me just fine. I'd like to thank you for the nice introduction and for the Decal Factory for presenting, supporting the ESA with their support for the seminar, and Jacqueline for setting everything up. She did a great job. So we'll go right into it. What I'm going to be doing today is showing you a couple of the chapters that are from a Security Sales Essentials course that is in which is an NTS course. I will not be able to give you the slide deck just so that you know if anybody's looking for it. However, if you or your folks from your company decide to take the course, you get an entire, you get this the slide deck in a handbook and so forth. So I just wanted to let you know that we'll only be doing some of 2 of the chapters because of the time presentation that we have here. Okay, this is a course that can be a 1 or 2 day course, just so that everybody knows. If you look, here is an overview of the 2 days that the course contents over 2 days. Day 1 is mostly residentially oriented, and then day 2 we go into more commercial stuff. We do talk some commercial sales in the first day as well, but it's primarily residentially oriented. All right. So the two chapters I want to go through are the overview of the Sales Essentials course, and then we'll go into identifying needs and so forth. In each of the chapters, we identify objectives that we want people to be able to learn throughout the session. So in this module, explaining a couple of the critical aspects of training, the process, sales process and skills, the most critical skill, differences between commercial and residential customers, 5 points to remember in building relationships, and identifying the 5 stages of the sales process. Having a little trouble. There we go. Okay. So we have in the course there's a two-pronged approach. One is understanding the sales skills that every salesperson should have, and then understanding the sales process well enough to know where you are and what's the next step and what you need to be doing next. In the sales skills, there's a number of things. One is a very enthusiastic attitude. If you're in the sales game and you aren't enthusiastic, you're going to have a lot of trouble because you do hear no, as I'm sure all of you are aware. And you have to maintain a good positive attitude and bring positive relationships to the people that you have to deal with. You've got to maintain a very good attitude. Commercial customers, they really care the most about protecting assets, whereas residentially, I think most people today are selling peace of mind. That always used to be our number one thing, and today it's also lifestyle enhancements and making the end user know that they have control over their home or their business. You need to be showing, as a salesperson, showing them that you understand and care about those messages as well. Some other differences. Commercial accounts will very typically take much longer to develop. Could really test someone's persistence. Timing can be, rarely is it. I guess sometimes it's days. Most of the times it's at least weeks, and sometimes it's months. And I've even seen it years. Actually, in my experience, not in the sales on the security side of the industry, but in another industry I've worked in. Residentially, very often the cycle happens that day, the day of the on-site call. Now, you might have done some work up front of that, but you have to be very responsive, and things happen very quickly. Building relationships, one of the key elements of being an effective salesperson. You have to show the customer that you are worth talking to. You are worth sharing information with. You are worth listening to a little bit. And notice I said a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. You have to have and earn credibility and respect from them. They need to know that you know what you're talking about. You need to establish rapport. It really does help if people can buy from somebody that they like. You have to be able to explain your products and sell the benefits, not the features. We were actually talking a little bit before in preparation, and Wes was talking about working at a Best Buy, I guess, and holding up a sign behind folks when he had a lot of young salespeople who would just spurt out all the features in the world about something, and he would held up a sign behind the customer, so the customer couldn't see, but the salesperson could, that said, "Who cares?" It's kind of a great thing. I mean, you need to have that mental sign for yourself. Customers don't really care about all the features that you might know about. What they do care about are how those features can help them, and those are the benefits. And then you need to arouse their interest and spark their interest and get them talking to you. So a big part of it is selling yourself, obviously, and being a professional salesperson. make sure you're dressed appropriately, you're clean and groomed. You don't necessarily want to be flashy. The whole generalization of a used car salesperson, slick dressing kind of person. That's not the key. The key is to be appropriate and clean, and make sure you're not in any way offensive to your clients. Also, selling the team that's behind you. I'm going to make the assumption that everybody feels like they've got a team behind them within their company. It may be the installation folks, the customer service folks, whatever, but you got to sell them as well as yourself. You are representing the entire company to your customer. So it's a good idea. In the course, we give you a student workbook where you can list your team and share some of what you learned with them, and kind of remind yourselves of their importance. Another thing that's very important in being an effective salesperson is going to be establishing goals. Most people, I think this is probably accurate, most people don't set goals. And it's something I've worked on with my teams often is making sure that we do set goals. You don't know when you're going to be successful if you don't set some goals for yourself. You sold 5 deals this week. Is that good? Well, it is if your goal was 3 or 4, or even 5 maybe. It's not good if your goal was 20. So make sure you're setting goals. They should be realistic, but they should also be a stretch for yourself. And then planning, and this is one of the more important things that people, again, the 60% of salespeople on average, I guess, they may be somewhat successful, but they're not as successful as they'd like to be. And I think most of the time it's because they really don't plan very much. They kind of let things happen to themselves. We've all heard these famous sayings: plan your work, work your plan. Lack of a system produces that I'm swamped feeling all the time. Failures don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. It is important. It takes some time, it takes some discipline, but it really is necessary. And then in the course, again, we go through and have some interactive sessions with the folks and let them practice different skills that we've gone over throughout the presentation. Now, we're not going to go through each and every one of these. I don't believe we'll go through each and every one of these in the sessions. We're just going to do the identifying needs. But be aware that when you do the course, we do some hands-on practice at times so that people can then share their best practices. We talk about the sales cycle, starting with prospecting, the approach portion of the cycle, identifying needs, which is the other area that I'll cover today, presenting a solution, and then closing. And so we walk people through it. We walk the students through it and identify the important aspects of each step of the sales cycle. So prospecting, the series of activities that lead to identifying new business opportunities, looking for business, looking for opportunities. We go through how they can do that. The approach is kind of setting the scene for your discussions with the prospective customer, making sure that you've aroused some attention from them, gotten them a little excited about listening to what you have to say, and giving you some information. Needs identification. This is all about, and we'll talk more in detail, but it's asking the right questions and then listening for some answers. But most importantly, finding out what the customer really wants to buy, what they need. Not doing this means that you're just selling what you think they need, or you're just selling what you know about your product. And that's not going to be the most effective way to try to close a sale. Once you've listened and you know what they want, then we need to present the solution. This could take the form in a couple different ways. A lot of times it might be in front of one person, might be in front of a group. You may end up having to do it like this over the internet now. I mean, people present solutions in many different formats. And then closing. And this may be one of the most difficult steps for a lot of people. And this may seem unusual, but there's very, very few people who are really good at closing. And there's a number of different ways that you can close business. It does not have to be, incessant asking them to buy and buy. There's other ways to do it, and we talk about those in that module. All right, hold on. We're having a little wait for the change of the next slide. There we go. So again, the residential sales cycle could be very, very short. It's usually 1 or 2 sales calls. You might use a demo kit or a portfolio kind of an aid. And it should be 10% demonstration, but 90% story concept. And that story concept comes out of your identifying the needs. That's when you're going to, know what to be presenting in the solution. From a prospecting standpoint, there's really not much difference between residential and commercial prospecting as far as some different methods. You might find some different areas that you can go to, but in it you want to assess the sales potential that you can have with this prospective customer. Know what they might be interested in buying. Be careful not to make any concrete assumptions, because you can have situations where somebody looks like, oh, they're not going to be able to afford anything, and who knows? Maybe they just like to dress casually. Finding out whether they have an immediate need is also really critical. In the approach for residential, you want to make sure you're leading in with, and have your salespeople leading in with something that the customer will see as a benefit. We call it the benefit hook, something that you think is going to be of importance to them. Commercially, a lot of times it comes down to, dollarizing the benefits, giving them a financial incentive. Residentially, it certainly can be many times more emotional or subjective of a decision, because they have had a burglary in the neighborhood maybe, or they want to keep up with the Joneses, who can now control their lights and locks and so forth in their neighborhood. So, identifying needs. It's really key. This is, I think, and it's the reason I picked that we're going to go through that chapter, but it's one of the keys in being effective. Finding out what exactly the customer wants, what they perceive to be their needs. You got to be very careful not to assume that you know what they want or need. Let them tell you. You can point them in the right direction, because sometimes they might be having a little trouble expressing it, but make sure it's what they want. Presenting the solution on a residential side, make sure that what you're using is effective for the particular instance you're in. Maybe it's a demo kit. Give them different levels of protection. Let them, again, it's another time to actually find out some information and let them tell you what they really need. Write up your quote, present it right to them at that time. Closing. In addition to closing the business, the deal at that point, You also want to ask for referrals. Now, some people ask for them right that night when they're closing that piece of business. Some people go back after the system has been installed and they know that the customer is happy. I think you could probably ask them at both times. But make sure you're asking for referrals, because that leads you right back into what you're doing there is prospecting. You're finding out other potential customers that you might be able to call on. In the commercial cycle, it could take hours, weeks, months, and I guess in different industries, maybe even years. So make sure you've set your sights on the right timing. You don't want to rush through things that need to have some time taken with them. The sales funnel. One of the things that as a sales manager you need to be looking at is where your salespeople are with each and every opportunity in the sales funnel. And you have more and more, hopefully you have lots of leads up on top, and then not every one of them are going to have interest generated and fact finding, but as you go further and further along in the sales cycle, down to closing and then account maintenance, you need to know where you are and where your people are in each of those, within each of the opportunities that they're working on. Now, how can you do that? Well, there's plenty of CRMs out there that will help you do that. Salesforce.com is probably one of the more popular ones, but you can do this in a lot of different ways, and you can make a homemade, you can make an Excel spreadsheet, and we actually, give one in the course, or give them a link to one in a course. And there's nothing real special about it, but what you can do is make it so that your folks, whether it's yourself as the salesperson or if you're the manager, your people can keep track of their opportunities and know where they are, and that way it helps them in their planning process to know what they need to be doing with each and every account and each and every opportunity. Of course, during the cycle, as you're trying to close, you're going to get objections. That's part of the sales game, obviously, as well. We do, practice repeating the objection back to the customer, so you make sure that they've heard exactly that you've heard exactly what they were saying. Reassure them that you're listening to them and that you understand why they might have that kind of a concern, but then explain how your product or your service might alleviate that concern, and then resume with your presentation and move on through the sales process. Cultivating the territory. Each salesperson needs to devise a system where they're going to give themselves more and more leads, self-generation of leads. Make sure that wherever you are, you're talking up the fact that you provide a service or a product that somebody might use. I had a situation in a different industry one time where a fellow called me up and he asked me about a product that he knew I did not sell, but it was a related product to what I did sell. It was just a different technology, and I liked that call almost the best, because I felt if he called me about a technology that I didn't sell, but it was related to what I sold, he had some confidence in me and placed some trust in me that I could find out where he could go to buy that product. Well, if he did that, he certainly was going to call me if he had a question about a product that I did sell. So making sure that people view you as the expert in your field has some big advantages. We talk a little bit about managing your time and understanding that you have a limited amount of time in every day and every week, and that you need to be making sure that you're using that time to its most effectiveness. A lot of these CRMs, again, will end up providing you with the to-do list, but making sure that you write it down so that you, A, don't forget things, and then B, you can then prioritize them. With limited time in a day, you need to make sure that you're doing the right things with your time, not the least important thing first. And then one last word here is great people are extraordinary people with extraordinary determination. And I think that's a very telling statement. You know, it's not always the smartest, biggest, fastest person that's the most successful. In fact, most of the time I would argue it's not. It's the person that wants to be successful the most. If you look at you know, whether it be athletes, actors, you know, whatever walk of life, salespeople, it's not necessarily the person that has the most talent. It's the person that gets the most out of the talent that they do have. A lot of times I use Derek Jeter as an example. Now, you may love or hate the Yankees, and I'm not, you know, I actually don't fall on either one of those. I think they're okay. I respect their history and everything. But if you look at Derek Jeter, the guy works hard. The guy practices harder than probably everybody. You know, go down to spring training, he's the one that's working and setting the example. And that's why he's as successful as he is. And that's what we all need to be when we think about our profession of selling. We need to be practicing things. How many times do you actually practice a presentation? How many times do you write up and go through what the possible objections are and what your answers will be to them? Those are the people that are successful and putting together goals and plans and so forth. So that's the overview section module that I wanted to go through, and I'll move right now into the identifying needs module. And as I said, these are just two of the modules that are in this this sales course. Again, at the beginning, we always give them objectives. So we would want them to define the meeting, be able to define the meeting of identifying the need stage and explain its purpose. Know what two critical skills are used in identifying needs, the active listening and effective questioning. Explain the difference between open-ended and closed-ended questions and the purpose of each. Define the purpose of qualifying a customer and how it is treated in residential versus commercial situations. Some of the topics we would be going through are active listening, effective questioning, qualifying, sales interview communication, examples of good questions for fact-finding, and then doing a site survey. As a reminder, the identifying needs part of the sales cycle is after the approach and before the solution. That's pretty key. Very many salespeople start presenting a solution before they ever have even tried or maybe been successful at identifying needs. That's not a good thing. So problem identification, the purpose and some tools. What you want to do is make your prospects aware of their problems, what they want, and you can help them do that. But remember, it has to be their needs and their desires from whatever product or solution you might propose. And we can do this through active listening and effective questioning. This is one of my favorites. A fellow that I respect a lot in the industry once told me, and he was quoting this Greek philosopher, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we could listen twice as much as we speak. And I use it as saying, you know, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in proportion. A good salesperson is not a slick talker, is not necessarily a person that talks a lot. But what they do is they listen, and then they bring out effective points for their product after identifying the needs. And I think we all can probably relate to this, that not effectively listening really does not help in a relationship, whether it's with your significant other, with a friend, with a boss, doesn't matter who it is really, anybody that you have in a relationship with. If you're not listening effectively to them, it causes problems. And if you're giving signals to them that you're not listening to them, you really are not going to help the relationship at all. And what we're talking about here are distractions. One of my best sales folks never brings his phone into a sales call. Now, a lot of you might argue, well, I might need to use the phone and everything, and I can understand that to a point. But your customer will probably, if you really had to use a phone, you now go out and get yours, or you could use one in their office or whatever. But his whole thing is he doesn't want to ever have that distraction and make the customer not feel like they're the most important thing, or that he's not listening, or that he's going to needs to rush out of there because something else came up. Make sure that's not a problem for your folks. A couple different kinds of questions that you might be asking: open-ended questions or open probes. These are questions where you're going to get your customer giving you an answer that's more than a yes or no, or I need a red one or a black one, or you're going to get more information out of them. That is if you actually listen to their answer, and that is also if you actually allow them time to answer. We'll talk a little bit about more about that in a second. And then there are times where you want a closed-ended question. You want a yes or no answer. You want a hey, please choose. A lot of times it's at the closing stage. It can be also at the identifying needs stage as well. So some open-ended questions. And in a course, we kind of walk through this and have some discussion around this. But what are you looking for as far as what you want to protect? What are your security needs? Why'd you call us up if they called you? What are your greatest concerns? If you ask the question and then you stop talking, you allow them to answer the question, and then you effectively listen to what they say, keys to being successful in sales. Some closed-ended questions. Would an entry-exit delay on the back door be helpful? That's a yes or no question. Would you like to add motion detectors in the family room? How many windows do you want protected? It's a number, but it's a closed-ended question. And a lot of times that's what you're looking for. You want to focus the client or the prospective customer on a particular issue or piece of the sale that you're working on. You have to understand and know what your objective is. Is your objective satisfying the customer with something right then, determining the internal power, especially in a commercial situation? There's going to be multiple people that are going to be affecting the business buying decision. And you need to understand, one of the things you're going to have to understand is who has the power within that organization to make the decision. And you might find that somebody has the power to actually say, yes, I'm going to buy it, but somebody else might have the veto power. And you need to know that as well as is there any hidden agenda in the whole process? And the more you know about what their real needs are and why they're doing this and what the agenda is, the more successful that you can be. So a couple of important questions. What benefits do you expect to see from a security system? Yeah, you may also want to say, what benefits do you want to see from a system that helps you control your home? Maybe security is not what they're really interested in. Maybe it's the being able to control their thermostat and their lights remotely. So don't pigeonhole them necessarily by asking the wrong, using the wrong words in your question. And another important question to ask is, what would having control of your lights, as an example of a benefit, do for you? Let them tell you what's important to them. And it's important, give them some time to answer. Ask 3 times. One time when I had a medical procedure done, And when I first got to the office, they asked me, what did you eat anything this morning? Told them, no, I know I wasn't supposed to get anything. The nurse that was going to be in the operating room came out and asked me the same question, and when they brought me back into the staging room, I guess you'd call it, a nurse and then the doctor asked me the same question. And when the doctor asked me, I said, I've been asked this question 4 times now. I'll give you the same answer every time, but don't any of you speak to each other? And their response to me, or the doctor's response to me was, you would be amazed how many times the first person asks them and they say, no, didn't eat anything. Second person asks them the question and the answer comes back, oh, I did have a piece of toast and juice. The third question is time it's asked, it's, I had a couple of pieces of toast. And then when the doctor comes in, they probably say, I ate breakfast. I was really hungry. So the point is, you may need to ask some of the important questions multiple times to make sure you're getting the right answer. Now, I would not suggest that you ask the exact same question every time. Try to rephrase it so that it seems like it's a slightly different question, but you might get information on the same issue that you're trying to bring up. The need to qualify. Hopefully, your salespeople or you as a salesperson understand that you don't have a lot of time in a day. Everybody has the same amount of time. And so you have to choose wisely on where you're going to be spending your time. So that means you need to make some qualifying type decisions about customers, about prospects, to make sure that the time that you do spend with somebody is well worth it. One of the practices I've done is I've asked people, okay, what do you want to make in a year? And they'll give you a number. And then you say, okay, well, how many hours a week can you work? And they'll give you a number. And some people will say 40. Some people will say, 35. Some people will say, hey, 60, 70, whatever. Well, then you do a little math and you figure out what each hour of their day is going to be worth. And it's very telling for some people to realize that, oh, geez, for what I want to make, every hour, is worth a lot. I need to make sure I make those hours count. So qualifying is assessing prospective customers. In a commercial setting, this is absolutely critical because as you go through the sales process, if the sales process can take weeks, days, weeks, and months, if you don't qualify well and you spend months working on a prospect and, only after spending all that time you realize that's not really a good potential for you, that's not a good thing. Residentially, obviously it's a little shorter term sales cycle, and qualifying is really more of an information or an effort to gather information that's relevant to what that prospect might buy. Hopefully you've done some qualification even before you get there to know that they are a suitable prospect. So what are some things you can do to qualify? Well, what type of homes are typical in that area? What is the median income? What type of businesses are in the area? Take a look. What kind of a car are they driving? Now, it doesn't mean, Warren Buffett, I think, drives an old F-150 pickup or something. Well, he certainly can afford to spend a lot of money on something, and from his car, you might not think that. So you can't take these clues as gospel, but in general, you might get some good qualification information from looking at these things. Don't try to be a mind reader. Somebody might be saying, yeah, so you know what I mean? And you say, yeah, sure, I know what you mean, but in reality, you don't have any idea what they mean. There's nothing wrong with telling people, hey, I don't really understand that. Please explain it to me. You're going to get, probably more information from them than you had before, and you're going to make sure you have a real understanding of what they're talking about. So don't make assumptions. Ask for some information. And again, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. But once you ask a question, give them some time to answer. Let them speak. A little phrase here for you. I keep 6 honest serving men. They taught me all I knew. Their names are what and why and when and how and where and who. And the whole point here is there's a lot of good questions, and I actually use this often. If I'm facing a situation where I'm not sure where to go next, or I need to find out more information about something, I'll say, okay, who, what, where, why, when. Let's go through those types of questions, and what don't I know? It just helps you figure out what question to ask next. Some principles of selling, especially as they apply to identifying needs. Talk through the problems and the benefits that you can provide. How do you find their problems? You identify them through questioning. Try to speak from their point of view. It gains, their acceptance. Be brief and to the point. There's often times where people will talk themselves out of a sale. Salespeople do that. You got to know when, you've made your point, they accept it, they understand it, and they're ready to buy. And then, stop telling them things and let them buy something. You do want to encourage the prospect to talk. You're going to find more information that way. Arguing with the customer. Well, if it's more important to you to be right than to make the sale, then go ahead and argue. But if it's really more important to you to make the sale, which as a professional salesperson it should be, you shouldn't have to be arguing with the customer. Now, one exception. If you're in a situation where you are afraid that the customer is going to buy something that really isn't going to meet his needs because you've uncovered needs and you think you think you understand what he's told you, what they've told you, then you might want to go back and forth with them a little bit, but only because you're trying to help them really do the right thing based upon your knowledge of what their needs are, and that comes from being able to control the interview and the interview process. Getting some agreement on major points as you're going through your questioning. Get them in a mood of saying yes to you. Give them questions that based upon the identification that you've already done, that they are going to agree with. And we give several examples, and we walk through them in the class with the folks. Make sure that at the end of the interview process that you have received the information that you need. What is important to them. Design your questions, and that's part of the planning process. Design some questions that are going to get you the right answers. Certainly make your questions in such a way that they will emphasize some benefits that are attractive to potential customers. And then at the end you'll tailor your benefit presentation and the features that you highlight to their needs. Have a list of questions. I'm not saying that you necessarily are going to stand there in front of them with a list of questions, but if you write them down and you develop a list, then you're going to remember them when you're in sales interview. You might use a survey. Make sure that you make notes about what the customer is saying so that you can come back to that in your presentation section. And we have in the appendix section a bunch of fact-finding questions that we think might be useful both on a residential and a commercial perspective in the course. Some common customer questions that they might ask of you that you should be prepared for. How long have you been in business? Are you licensed? Can I, to get 24-hour service? So on and so forth. The effective salesperson has, thought about what kind of questions they might get from their customer, potential customer, and they have an answer. They have, they've thought it through. They know what they're going to answer for each one of those questions. I think most of the time you're going to find, your salespeople are going to find that they're being compared to the competition. And if you pay attention to what kind of questions they're asking you, the prospective client is asking you, you can find out what are areas of strength for your company. I've never been a proponent of talking down a competitor. I just don't think it really helps you in the long run. However, that doesn't mean that you don't listen to what is important to the customer and then bring up differentiating points for yourself. For instance, if you know that you have a better warranty than your competitors, you might want to bring up the fact that, hey, we have a 3-year warranty. I would suggest you check around and make sure everybody, find out what everybody else is offering. Site surveys. They really are a necessity. If you haven't done a site survey of some sort, you are looking, you're going to probably get yourself into some trouble. And that's, not anything you want to be doing. We're not going to be talking about conducting site surveys and designing systems. It's outside the scope of the course, the sales course. However, the NTS offers a number of different courses that can give you that knowledge, and we talk about that in the course so that they know that those are available. Make sure that you know the lifestyle of the user or the business so that you can tailor your presentation. Another part of the identifying needs section. And then in the course we break up into teams, and we have somebody act as the customer, somebody as the salesperson, and somebody else that's act as the observer, and we walk them through an exercise. And we find it's helpful in doing that because they start putting some real practice to what they've learned in the course, and it's one of the real benefits to the course. So that's the presentation on the identifying needs module, and what I wanted to end up with here are two different things. One is why would I want to train my sales force, and I'll also talk to you a little bit about a couple of different, I guess, references that from folks that have taken the sales course. I'll do that first. The couple of times that I've given the course, one of the times I had a number, it's probably 3 or 4 folks from one large regional installation company. They happen to be in the northeast section of the country, but when I later on saw the sales manager for the group, he was telling me that they had seen a measurable increase in their closing ratios after their folks took the course, and viewed it as clearly a good investment of their time and money to take the course. Another one was from a salesperson from a much smaller company who was I wouldn't call him a seasoned veteran or anything. He had been selling for that company for probably 2 years, so he had some experience, but not a lot. And he happened to actually talk to one of my salespeople after taking the course, and said that it was really great and everything. So I called him and I said, well, I was glad to hear that you had that opinion of it, but why would you say that? He said, well, and this was about a week after he had taken the course. So he said, I've closed 4 out of the last 5 deals that I was working on, and that it's up from usually out of 5 deals I would normally have gotten 2 or 3. The numbers are not, the specific numbers are not that important. The point was that he really saw a measurable increase in his success at in this was residential sales. And to be honest with you, and it'll tie into some of the reasons of why I train my sales force here. Increased sales due to reinforcement of what they already knew. I actually think with the fellow from the smaller company, what he said the number one thing was that, I had stressed in the course to actually ask for the order, to ask somebody to buy something. Now, I don't think any salesperson hasn't learned that before in their life. They probably have heard that. But I do know that very many salespeople have problems and don't close as often and as effectively as they should. So just hearing it again and reinforcing it is probably a very important thing. They may actually learn something. I think they will. There's a fair amount of folks that haven't had too much formal training, and they will learn something about the sales process and their planning process that will help them. It'll increase their professionalism. I talk about it when I teach the course. I view, and that's why I like this sales and marketing professional group. Obviously, the people that are on this line, we feel sales is a profession. It's our career. You'd be amazed how many people sell, and they don't really kind of almost think of it as a profession. And I think it's important to reinforce that with them. It increases their self-esteem once they've been through a course and they've learned something. They feel better about themselves. It increases their belief in your company. You're taking the time, giving them the time and taking some of the efforts that and money to invest in them. Why more would we to trade? Well, it'll pay off with increased effectiveness. The fellow that went from 2 sales out of 5 on average to 4 will really affect the bottom line of every company. They'll appreciate it, and you will increase your retention. Now, I think everybody understands and realizes that having to hire and train a new salesperson or a new anybody in the company is expensive. So, keeping the people that you have and making them more effective is a very, very cost-effective investment for you. If they are new salespeople, you're going to be able to teach them your way of selling, your way of bringing on new customers. If they're veterans and they've been with you for a while, it'll give them an opportunity to share some of their best practices. But as I said earlier, pretty much everyone learns something, and it's usually something of value that will increase their effectiveness. And if you don't want to train your sales force, the bad thing is they might stay and be just as ineffective as they might be today, and that's not good for your company as well. So hopefully I've given you a few reasons why you might want to go ahead and train your sales force. Those are the 2 chapters I wanted to go through. Jacqueline, I guess we can open it up for questions through Lisa, and I'm sure Lisa will probably take back the presentation. There you go.
Okay, that was awesome. Ken, thank you so much. What a fantastic presentation. Great examples. Sounds like a fantastic resource. We're down to just a few minutes here, but I do have a couple of questions that came in, so let me just kind of wrap them together a little bit, if I may. It's basically concerning the ROI of the course. So you shared with us a little bit of feedback that you had gotten from some of the courses, but can you speak to maybe some additional feedback that you've gotten and maybe some examples of some of the return on investment as far as one of the questions, for example, how can I dollarize the impact of training?
Sure. You know, I haven't gotten too much individual companies giving me their exact data, but I'll walk through how you could dollarize it because I think it's very, very easy, and it is necessary and it's effective. You know, if you take the example of get a baseline with your sales force of, you know, how many sales do they do in a week? How many sales do they close out of what percentage out of 100? Get a baseline, and then take a look at it. And if their close ratio is, or close percentage is, you know, less than 50, and I'm talking residentially right now, you know, there's probably going to be some room for improvement there. And then do some math and say, okay, well, what is it going to, if I had a guy that was selling, you know, 3 out of 10, and we got him up to 6 out of 10, what does 3 sales a week, given that the week was the time frame, what does 3 sales a week do for my company's bottom line? Don't just take into account the initial sales price, but take into account the recurring revenue, because that's really what, you know, is driving your company for the most part. And then compare that to what the training might cost. I mean, the training is going to cost, you know, hundreds of dollars, not thousands. It's, you know, it's hundreds of dollars. You know, a couple of increased sales per week times 52 weeks in a year times the number of years you're going to keep that customer. The investment is well worth it. I think I'd be hard pressed to think anybody wouldn't find that to be the case.
Okay. And another question just came in. It says, besides taking this course, what single piece for advice would you give a sales rep entering the alarm industry?
Well, okay, that's an interesting question. And I'm going to give you an answer that I don't think is specific to the alarm industry.
Okay.
But I think it's just from a sales perspective. You know, work hard and keep your customers' best interest as your guide. I once in a prior career I worked with a guy who had been moved from a technical position to a sales position. And one of the other technical guys said, oh, that fellow, his name is Rich, that fellow will do really well. He could sell ice cubes to Eskimos. And I remember, I was very young at the time, and I remember thinking to myself, you know, Eskimos don't need ice cubes. A good salesperson wouldn't sell ice cubes to Eskimos. He would sell them mittens or a coat, but he doesn't need ice cubes. And so the point I'm trying to make is, if you keep your customer's best interest at heart, in the long run, that's going to serve you well, because you're going to have a happy customer who bought something that he needed from you, not just what you had to sell him. And he's going to say, hey, yeah, that guy, you know, Ken took care of me. You know, I thought I needed 5 things. He told me, you know, after listening to me, he realized I only needed 3. Yes, in the short term, he only sold 3 instead of 5, but I've sent him 5 different referrals because he treated me right, and in the long run, you know, Ken wins on that deal. That's, I guess that's one. If I was going to give one piece of advice, that might be it. Think of things as in the long-term perspective, because hopefully your idea and your feeling is you want to be in sales as a profession, and it's going to be your career.
Okay. All right, well, it's getting close to bewitching hour here, and we want to respect our attendees' time. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I will take just a minute, though, to take the opportunity to invite you to join us on January 19th through 23rd in Orlando for the 2014 ESA Leadership Summit. Leadership Summit is an executive conference to share business intelligence for growing companies. Our theme this year will be Link, Learn, and Lead. Really sorry I didn't come up with that one, but can't take credit for that. Anyway, great topic, so don't miss it, and mark your calendars also for our Q4 SMP webinar. Next one is coming up December 11th. And as we conclude, I want to take the opportunity just to say a moment of goodbye. I have accepted a new position with the commercial AV integrator that does not work within the security realm, unfortunately. So I'm going to be stepping away from my role as your chair. You'll see on here our Erica Wood is AKA the security girl of America Fire and Security. She has been doing an awesome job over the past year serving on our advisory task force and has really just taken on all of our social media, been very involved, and I went ahead and suggested that she be my successor, and she just jumped in. So please join me in welcoming and thanking Erica. I also want to thank Ken Nelson. It was an excellent presentation. And again, to Wes for coming on, and to the Decal Factory for being our sponsor of this session today. So thank you all for attending, and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.